The Defining Duke podcast recently had an interview with Carrie Patel, the main director of Avowed, and they went over a bunch of information that I want to cover today in this video, and I also want to give my final thoughts on what I'm expecting and what I feel like you should be expecting from the game as well. First up, to get it out of the way in case anyone did not know, Avowed will have performance mode, a balance mode, and a quality mode for the Xbox Series X.
Gamescom LA, and we wanted to revisit performance on Series X and S consoles. And obviously, we talked to the team, and at the time, the team was targeting 30 frames per second as a baseline. So it seems now that more robust performance options seem to be available. So wanted to know, was the extra development time needed to be able to achieve these targets on console, or was 60 FPS always the vision and standard for Avowed?
We always want to provide the best performance experience that we can, but that's something that happens pretty late in development. Once we've got everything placed in level, then we can go about optimizing it. So optimization and performance tuning, that's all been a more recent effort for us. But yes, as you noted, we're going to have performance mode. And we'll also have balanced mode, which is sort of in between quality and performance for players who also have, I believe, a 120 hertz TV.
Unfortunately, the performance mode will not be available on the Xbox Series S, but you will still have a 40 frames option if you have a 120 hertz television or monitor. Now, to get into some of the things I expect from Avowed. I'm expecting a role-playing game that is fun, that is engaging, with some well-written characters, a well-rounded story, and some really quality side quests with some fun combat and powers to use. I really feel like that's what we should all realistically be expecting from this game. Unfortunately enough, I don't know if anyone's going to be taking this realistically to heart, but the Avowed director has also stated on a completely different podcast that the game will have jank, but you need jank to be fun and creative. Now, that is something that I could either agree or disagree on. A lot of games that I really enjoy, like Fallout and The Elder Scrolls, do have jank, but then you look at games like Doom that have no jank whatsoever and are complete masterpieces in what they set out to do. Understandable if Avowed does not feel like Baldur's Gate 3 quality levels, but it's also not understandable because you're owned by a $3 trillion company. There's really no excuse for your game to not feel extremely well performing and just not janky. And I'm hoping that Avowed doesn't release to a look, it's well written, and look, the combat can be somewhat fun and the characters are well written and the story's pretty good, but the game feels like it's from 2013. That's not what I want from Avowed. I don't want it to feel like a Fallout New Vegas. I want the gameplay to be updated. I want it to be fun to play. I want to be able to replay it just based on the combat alone. That is when I know that the gameplay is solid. And I especially don't want a situation like in Dragon Age the Veilguard, and I'll also be showing a clip from the Defining Duke podcast that kind of combats this. I don't want to have a situation where I cannot be an asshole, specifically to my companions. In literally every single other game that I've played, coming from Obsidian, that has companions, you can be an asshole. The Outer Worlds, you can be an asshole. You could just kill everyone, which I find amazing. Fallout New Vegas, you can just kill everyone. There's no issue with that whatsoever. Avowed needs to copy that winning formula. They cannot abandon that. And then they especially can't abandon it in future titles. And I'm really hoping that they never follow in suit or in line with what Dragon Age the Veilguard was doing, because that RPG was just a complete shit show from the start. I want us to have complete player freedom to be an asshole or to be a complete hero to anyone in the game. I don't want there to be one character where I cannot be an asshole to, unless it's like a 4-year-old child that look, I still want to be an asshole to that child because it's a role-playing game. I can act who I want to be. You better give me that option.
Okay, so just a clarification, it's more like I can do things to piss off said companions that may disagree with my kind of ideology as far as those type of personal choices. Because it seems like everyone in the world has the companions may have their own kind of ideology, so to speak. Can I do things to piss people off? Is pretty what I would ask.
Yes, you can piss people off.
Okay, great.
And I'm also expecting the choices in the game to matter. And again, this is something the director has said, and I'll play a clip of in a second. But the choices that matter, I want, like it said in this clip, short, medium, and long-term choices to matter. I want the little side content to matter in terms of its reputation with an ally, if it's reputation with a faction, if it's something as small as I get a certain weapon if I go a certain path. I want that to matter because that adds replayability, that adds a feeling of, look, I'm actually enjoying the experience and I'm not just converging on one path no matter what I do, because that is boring. That is something that a Bethesda game would do nowadays. I do not want Avowed or any Obsidian current game to go down that path.
And just to add on to that point, because I love that kind of discussion, one thing that I read, I believe with the Xbox Wire, you guys publicly have discussed this in terms of short-term, mid-term, and then long-term choices. So these choices can also affect endgame, so to speak.
Yes.
Ooh, okay, okay.
There's also one big criticism that I would have of The Outer Worlds 1, is that there was not enough side content in the game, and that's something that I'm hoping Obsidian can actually build upon for Avowed, and even for The Outer Worlds 2, add more side content. You guys do side content really well. Look, your main quests, they're pretty solid. Like, The Outer Worlds, you know what? Nothing crazy special. It was solid. I'm expecting Avowed to be special because you guys have had like a solid 5, 6 years now to produce this game, to think of something. I'm expecting some quality main story, but I also do want a lot of meaty side content. I do not want a 20-hour experience. And I know that they came out a few days ago and stated that Avowed was probably going to be around 15 to 20 hours main story and about 40 to 50 with all the side content. That's fair, because I'm also expecting replayability to factor in if the game is good enough to even be replayed, because there's a chance that they screwed up so badly, and it's a small chance because it's Obsidian and I have faith in them, but it's a small chance that they screwed up so badly I don't even want to replay the game, and I would just be shitting on it for like 6 videos in a row. But the quality of the side content is definitely something that needs to be there. It needs to, because if it's not, it's just going to be a shallow experience when I'm not playing the main story. Like, what's the point other than just grinding for the sake of grinding?
Every developer I know has a really unique approach to side content. How much would you say the side content in Avowed, a bad choice of word, like matters, but not in the sense of like quality, more so in the sense of like, can it interweave into the main story? Can there be reactions based on like completing things or characters that reappear from side content if you choose to pick that up? How does the side content exist in Avowed?
It's all so the side content is part of the same ecosystem as the main content in Quest. Obviously, there are good mechanical reasons to do side content. You'll get more XP, more materials to upgrade your gear. But also, the side content is where we get to put a lot more flavor and a lot more character that's informing the world you're stepping into and showing some other sides of the conflicts that you're encountering. So yes, some of those you might do something with one particular character and a piece of side content early in the game, and maybe they show up 1 or 2 regions later. There are definitely some pieces of side content that you will see the ramifications of in the end game. There are some that will affect the end slides you get. So yeah, all of this stuff matters.
And unfortunately, something that I know Obsidian does well, but something that I kind of want them to innovate from, hopefully in future titles. I'm expecting The Outer Worlds 2 to have this, but ending slides. I'm tired of ending slides. I understand but it's not an ending. It's just outcomes. That's all it is. I want a proper ending. What I want from Obsidian RPGs, and really realistically from all RPGs, is to do what Bethesda did with Fallout 4. Like, just continue the game. Main quest over? Look, the world is changing, a bunch of different cities have new little dialogue options. Like, in Diamond City, whatever faction you side with, the faction now takes a stronghold in that city and has their own, like, faction characters walking around. I think that's awesome. I think that's something that Obsidian should actually take a handle on for their future titles. And what was stated in the clip I just showed you, that, look, this ending slide, it's like, I want you guys to do something new. And I know, like, ending slides, it creates more player choice. It does. It creates more freedom. It allows you to do what you want. It allows for just showing the outcomes. But it's also boring. It's not like anything that I'm able to actually reflect on. Like, because I can just go back and do something different, and oh, look, I get a different slide, right? Not like a different crazy ending that could happen that actually affects the world after I beat the game, like in Fallout 4. And that's one thing that I'm really worried on. It's not the ending slides, but it's innovating. It's something new. It's something that a game like, for example, a game that I recently finished, Sniper Elite Resistance, offered nothing new. It offered no innovation whatsoever. It was like the same kind of campaign, but shorter. It was the same animations. It was the same guns. It was the same kill cams. It was everything the same, but just repackaged into a full price kind of DLC. I want them to innovate. Look, I enjoy their games, but when I finish it and I'm like, oh my god, this is a 9 or 10 out of 10, and I give it a few days, I'm thinking, oh, they didn't really change that from the previous titles. Oh, they didn't really do anything new there. Oh, like the writing was okay. Yeah, it wasn't that good. And my mind starts to wander and I'm thinking, well, I did give it a 9 or 10 out of 10 when I finished it, but looking back on it, it's like, well, I would maybe like a 7 or an 8, maybe even a 6, right? Like, it wasn't that good. But I really need them to innovate, because if they actually do new things and they actually attempt and are really creative with how they handle their new RPG, I can give them higher scores. I can praise them. Other people will praise them for trying something new. Even if it's not extremely successful, they can try something completely new. Even if it's not like 10 out of 10, oh my god, this was extremely successful, you should do this for every single future RPG, I will applaud them for attempting something. And that goes for literally any RPG developer or developer in general. I applaud Bethesda for attempting to try a space game, but I also shit on them because they kind of fumbled the execution. And another thing that I think Obsidian really could benefit from is romance options in their games. The Outer Worlds didn't have it, Fallout New Vegas didn't have it, to my understanding Pillars of Eternity didn't have it, Pentiment kind of had it. Like, I think there was an option where you could have romantic interest with one character, but not exactly like a romance companion option. And it's something that they're not continuing in Avowed. There will be no romance options. And in this interview, again with Defining Duke, the director actually gave a pretty decent reason on why they're not putting romances in the game. And I'd have to kind of agree with her.
Never say never. There are definitely people on the team, like myself included. I think it's a fun option to include in games. I am not against it in the least. The two big challenges are, one, it is a big additional burden on the writing and design. And I think the biggest part of that is if you are designing a romance path, I believe you need to make sure that your non-romance path is just as deep and meaningful and thoughtful. You know, you don't want to feel like, well, I missed out on actually getting to know this character because I chose not to romance them. Again, it is a thing that can be done, but you know, every game development process is a matter of making choices about, you know, what you're going to execute on and what you're going to have to say maybe next time. But the second part of this is, you know, I think when romances are done the best, it maintains the original integrity of the character you're romancing. You know, you never want this companion you're getting to know who, in theory, you like because they've got a fun personality or interesting beliefs or just something really magnetic about their character. You never want that character suddenly change into like a, you know, player worshipping mod just because you've entered the romance path. And so I think, you know, for us, allowing those characters to stand on their own 2 feet, in some cases, we've been able to tell stories about those characters and their personal lives outside of the party and sort of what going on this journey with the envoy then means for them that we wouldn't necessarily be able to tell if all of these characters had to be available for romance.
I genuinely believe that's a pretty fantastic option, but at this point in the gaming industry, a lot of role-playing games offer this. So I don't know if it's, look, we just don't want to do it because we don't want to risk, you know, offering our companions up to having player, you know, worshipping mods, so to speak, or if we're just not going to put in the effort to add a sort of romance that players might want in the game for certain characters. If it's a lack of wanting to do it, or if it is really a vision on how they want to view the character, like she said, people have done it, but Obsidian seems to not want to do it. So I don't know if it's them just wanting to, like, not rush, but they just don't want to put on too many tasks at hand while they're already putting out a game. Because in this interview, the director, Katie Patel, did state that it is a multi-game studio. They're working on several games at once. This is not like a all hands on deck, everyone's pushing out Avowed. They're working on the Outer Worlds too. They probably have another project coming up after Avowed releases, whether if it's DLC or whether if it's a completely new game. So in that context, I enjoy that they put out a lot of games at once, but they also don't go all in on these games, right? Avowed is not going to be some 100-hour experience that some people might want it to be. It's going to be another 20, 30-hour experience, which for some people like myself, I find refreshing. I'm fine with that. If it's replayable and enjoyable, I will enjoy that, of course. But I also would like to see an Obsidian RPG that just goes all out, balls to the wall, let's make it 150 hours, pack as much quality content as we can, and let the player just enjoy a fun time. And those are really my final thoughts on what I'm expecting and what I feel like you should be expecting from Avowed. I'm expecting, and if we're going off like Metacritic scores or anything, solid 88. I'm expecting an 88. Realistically, it could be way lower. I'm not expecting it to break 90, especially after the director said expect jank and bugs. I'm like, okay, you know what? This game could be a 70. Who knows? I'm expecting an 88 at like the highest, and I'm hoping for an 88. I would love to see a high 90, because that would just be crazy. Like, Game of the Year contender, would love to see that, because that means it's a really good game. But I also have to take into perspective of, this is another Obsidian game. I have to compare this game, when I do play it, to previous titles, and if I do make a review, which I most likely will of this game, I will have to compare it to The Outer Worlds, I will have to compare it to Fallout New Vegas, and to previous games that they have written, that they have directed, and that they have created. I'm hoping this one can live up, I pray to God, it can live up to their previous releases, because even for a game like Grounded, that game was nowhere near on the level of like a normal narrative Obsidian would normally put out. It wasn't bad, it just wasn't like, you know, a fantastic 10 out of 10 RPG like Fallout New Vegas was. But I'm expecting them to innovate in some sort of way where they can offer up everything that they've learned from their previous titles into one big new project like From Software did with Elden Ring, or like Atlas did with Metaphor ReFantazio. I'm expecting something great here. That's what I'm expecting, and that's what I hope you should be expecting as well. I'm not expecting them to fumble the bag and to get lazy with some things. I'm expecting them to put as much effort into every little mechanic in this game as possible. Thank you all for watching this video. If you did enjoy and want to see more videos like this one, consider leaving a like, sharing, commenting, and subscribing if you so choose to. Thank you all for watching this video once again, and I will see you guys in the next video.